other than retiring from your current profession, could you see yourself leaving Notre Dame of your own volition?
No. I mean, look, I think Mike Tomlin had the best line, right? You know, unless that fairy godmother comes by with that, $250 million check, my wife would want to take a look at it first. I'd have to run it by her.
Welcome in. It is a Tuesday edition of Hunt and Hill from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge Studios, downtown BR. I am Hunt Palmer. He is Hill. Jeremy Hill, Casey Gaines, and Taylor Sharp back there on the ones and twos. And that fairy godmother with the check is named Scott Woodward. Brian Kelly is now the head football coach at LSU. By now, you know that. So we've got 2 hours to react to it, and we are looking very much forward to that. Troy Pride Jr. played at Notre Dame from 2016 to 2019. He is now a member of the Carolina Panthers. He'll talk to us in 15 minutes about Brian Kelly. We'll also have Jonas Gray Jr. at 1 o'clock, who was a running back at Notre Dame when Brian Kelly took the job. What were things like as he takes over a locker room that was committed to another coach? We're looking forward to those two conversations. Pete Futek from College Football News at 1:30 for a national look at what has developed over the last 24 hours. But it starts with us here on Hunt and Hill. Jeremy, I want to start with my gut reaction and then what I've dug around and found since then, but I'll let you have the mic first. You saw it last night. It comes across the Twitter feed. The phone starts buzzing. What's your initial thoughts when Brian Kelly is announced as the guy?
Yeah, initial thoughts. When I first heard it, I kind of heard the rumblings early on in the day, and I just kind of swamped it in kind of all the other reports. Like, man, this is another fake report that we're probably hearing. LSU probably has no interest in Kelly. I don't know why we're hearing all this stuff. And then I saw Pete Thamel tweet out, and I was like, hold on. Normally Pete doesn't tweet out nonsense. So I had to do a little more digging, and then once I saw it was a real thing, I was excited, man. It was a name we kind of talked about early on, and I really didn't have that much excitement for. But I think for me, my initial thoughts were stability and getting this program back to a stable ground and where you can win consistently year in and year out, not the ups and downs. That's not what we want to be at LSU, one of the top programs in the country. And I think obviously Coach Kelly has sustained success as a coach his entire time. I think you go and look through that, you'll see that's probably what he's going to be bringing to Baton Rouge. So I was excited. I said we needed an offensive-minded coach, especially with the way the offense has played the last 2 seasons, and that's exactly what we got. So I'm pumped about it. Obviously, it's going to rub a little people wrong in Tiger Nation with the fit and the culture fit and all that stuff, but my answer to that is winning is going to solve all that culture stuff. You're not going to be worried about where he came from. He could have came from Antarctica. You start winning games in Baton Rouge, the people will get behind you. So my initial thoughts, I'm definitely excited and I'm pumped for it.
Okay, I saw the news come down. When I see Pete Thamel tweet that, it makes me think that that's got some real legs. And I thought that I'd start to buy in when the reports were that the deal was come to, not that they were targeting or if they had been in talks, and that's what came down. And I said, that makes sense for Scott. That's somebody that he would target. And I also thought, I'm a little underwhelmed. My initial reaction, without looking into it, just seeing Brian Kelly from afar for all these years was, okay, wins a lot of games, doesn't win the big games. He's a little bit older than I would like. He's a little bit abrasive. Now, that's not a huge deal. Bill Belichick's not exactly the most sunshine guy you've ever seen. Nick Saban's not exactly inviting people over for picnics. I've seen Greg Popovich win a few games. That's not that big a deal, but I just kind of think, okay, he's older. He's gotten killed in big games that I've watched, and I just don't know if that's the cutting-edge offense that I'm looking for. I don't know. But on the other side, I know he can run an organization. He won't be overwhelmed by what's going on. He has sustained solid performance year after year after year at multiple places, at multiple levels, multiple conferences, multiple schools. He's sustained a very solid level of play. That's my initial reaction. I'm underwhelmed for these reasons, but I kind of get it. Then I start to look into it, and we'll see what bears out. I didn't quite realize that over the last 5 years, he's 54-9. That's very good. But who have you beaten? And what have you done when you show up in big games? And as I look back over the last 5 years, starting with 17, you're 3-3 against ranked teams that year. Then you go to 18. You go 12-0. You go 4-0 against ranked teams in the regular season. Michigan, Stanford, Virginia Tech, Syracuse. Okay, that's a solid run. We'll talk about what happens at the end of that in a second. Then in 19, you went 11-2. Played 4 ranked teams. You lost to Georgia and Michigan, big boys. You beat Virginia and Navy, who were ranked. Well, that's not super great. 2020, COVID year. You played 3 ranked teams. You went 1-2. That one win, Trevor Lawrence had COVID, and you played DJU. Now you won, but he had COVID. You came back and played Trevor Lawrence in this conference championship game and lost 34-10. Then in 2021, this year, you're 11-1. That's very good. You've played 1 ranked team, Cincinnati. They came to your place and beat you by 2 scores. So you're 10-9 against ranked teams in that 5-year run. And when you've played on the biggest stage against Alabama in the national championship, no chance. Against Clemson in the college football playoff, 30-3. Again, last year with Trevor coming back, 34-10. Yeah, big stage, not great at Notre Dame. Now, the strength of schedule is better than I thought. And this is just the statistics I have to go by. Whether or not, what team was good, I can't go back and look at what Virginia's personnel was one year versus what Michigan's were. I can't do that. But the strength of schedule over the last 5 years is an average of 10th in the country. Pretty good, somewhere between 9 and 16 every year. So better than I probably would have thought based on those metrics. So he's winning a lot of games, but he's getting to the point where you play these championship games and it hasn't gone very well. Now there's recruiting. Also better than I thought. Over the last 5 years, he's averaged the 11th ranked class in the country. Now, there's 2 ways to slice that. One, he's recruiting pretty well at a place that's tough to recruit. It's been very well documented on this station. If you look at Twitter, message boards, he's having to recruit nationally with difficult academic standards. And he's putting together classes that are between 4th and 18th, had a couple 10s, a 15th, a 9th, putting together really good classes. So that tells me 2 things, and they're on either side. If you're really pro, you're going to side one way. If you're really con, you're not. I'm just going to give you the information. He is recruiting better than I thought, which means, man, if you give him LSU's resources, he may recruit really well. He may get top 5 classes, top 2 classes, and that can change some things. On the other hand, you can't really give me the argument that, when he plays Clemson or Georgia or Alabama, he doesn't have anywhere near the athletes. Well, the recruiting rankings say, he's got some pretty good players, and he's getting beat by 3 touchdowns. Which one is it? I don't know. The offense has been okay for an offensive-minded guy. We talked all the time about how we want to have somebody with an expertise on one side of the ball. What do you do? He's an offensive guy. Well, what are the offenses? Scoring offense over the last 5 years, anywhere from 13 to 42nd is an average of 26 in the country in scoring offense. Total offense, average of 37th in the country. It's not some kind of high-flying expertise, system that he's put in place that's unstoppable at times like we've talked about with Lincoln Riley. That's my whole diatribe of statistics that puts it all together. What this hire boils down to me is how much do you believe in the infrastructure that is LSU's football program? We hear all the time, the last 3 guys that have done it were national champions. And if you believe that this program has great access to top talent, is going to financially commit, has unbelievable facilities, passion, and it just takes a really good job to be a great program here at LSU, I think Brian Kelly can do a really good job. If you think that it takes more than that and that there are some fatal flaws here, I can get on board with it, specifically with a 60-year-old guy. After being underwhelmed at this outset of it, looking at the recruiting side of things, and the fact that he hasn't had very good quarterback play, which we'll talk about a little bit later, I tend to think this is a very high floor hire that is probably going to produce a couple of really, really good teams and is going to generally look around 9-3. That's my feeling on it from the start. That's a very long-winded way of getting into things, but I toss it to you with what I've laid out there.
Yeah, I feel like those are all fair criticism, and I may sound like a Brian Kelly apologist today, but my second thoughts after my initial thoughts yesterday was why on earth would a head coach leave one of the best, not football programs in the country, but best football jobs in the world? Notre Dame, the history they have, just obviously what you have up there in Indiana at Notre Dame. Why would someone leave that? And I think all those questions are going to be answered pretty soon here. When you go to Louisiana, when you go to the SEC, when you see the recruiting, and I think for Coach Kelly, it was a real realization when you go against some of those SEC teams and you feel undergunned. It's like you're bringing a pistol to an AK-47 fight, and those guys just look better. And I remember vividly, especially in 2012, when we thought we should have been playing that Notre Dame team, and we felt like we'd have had no trouble playing that Notre Dame team just because we just knew we had way too many athletes. You just look up and down that roster, the athletes that we have down here, especially in the SEC, you feel like it's no match, and we've seen them go against those teams. So I think for me, just watching this program and watching all the things that have happened, especially this season, I know when Coach Kelly takes over, all that stuff is out of the question. You look at some of the coordinators he's hired during his time, like a guy like Marcus Freeman, who we had our eyes on here at LSU. Those are the type of hires he's had. He's had coordinators come and go. We've seen that here at LSU and it not work out. Notre Dame has had sustained success. And rather you think it's 9 or 10 wins or whatever it may be, I think you get a guy like Coach Kelly going into some of these kids' homes. Parents love stability, and they know that their kid's going to have a great opportunity to go to a head coach who knows how to win football games. And I think that's going to send the recruiting over the top. So for me, I like the hire. Last night I was pumping home run higher. I'm probably going to still stay there because, man, you look around this country, man, what other place do you go? How higher can you get? Like I said before, Kirby's not going anywhere. Nick Saban's not going anywhere. Dabo's probably not going anywhere. I think Kelly's probably the highest you can go, man, and that's kind of what we said about Scott. He's got to go for the big fishes. He's got to find a guy that he feel like he's do a great job here at LSU, and I'm gonna stick with that, man. I'm gonna pump some sunshine and rainbows into my Tigers.
Well said. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Absolutely not at all.